Hello again, dreamers. It's me, R, and I'm going to talk to you about tulpas. Before I start explaining what a tulpa is, I would like to clarify what a tulpa isn't. Tulpas are not alters like in the movie Split. They're not a dissociative identity disorder or other specified dissociative disorder. They are not demons or delusions. Neither are they fictional characters, roleplay characters, or imaginary friends. However, these last three can turn into a tulpa if you're not careful enough. I will say, however, that this will take a long time and it's basically impossible to create a tulpa on accident. But let's say you are a book writer and you are crawling in the skin of your main character to figure out what they're doing. But what if the main character starts telling you what they would do? Then you got a tulpa. If it's not your own voice talking back to you, you've accidentally created a tulpa. Another way to make a tulpa is forcing one, which is basically just you talking to yourself and waiting for a response. You don't have to use your loud voice, you can just use your internal head voice. You don't have to talk it loud. Neither do you have to stand in front of a mirror or anything, you don't have to picture anything, you just have to talk and wait for a response. This can take forever, but please be patient. If you spend a couple hours on it every day, you'll get results in a while. It differs from person to person, so I'm not able to say how long it will take. And mine wasn't forced or created from an imaginary character. Mine was a walk-in. And walk-ins, in my opinion, don't exist a whole lot. Most of the tulpas that I know are forced or imaginary friends that just got out of hand. Basically just them on steroids. People who actively seek to create tulpas or have tulpas are called Tulpamancers. Tulpamancy? Tulpamancers. Something along those lines. It sounds like some kind of D&D term, but trust me, that's what they call themselves. Also, Tulpamancy comes from Tibetan Buddhism, I believe. That's what Wikipedia tells me, but I am not very certain, because I definitely haven't seen any references about Tulpamancy before the 21st century. So I think this is a relatively new occurrence or term or psychological experiment that people are working on. When you're creating a tulpa, you must act as if the tulpa is already there. You must act as if someone is in your head already listening to everything you're saying. Red, my own tulpa, is a walk-in. He appeared one day after a series of unfortunate events that I will not elaborate on, which basically means that tulpas can in fact form from a trauma. But still, I have some trouble identifying Red as a tulpa because he doesn't really fit in any of the other categories I have mentioned. People with dissociative identity disorder, they don't have a shared consciousness with their alter ego. Red, however, can access my memories, but he can also block me from experiencing what he's experiencing when he's in control of the body. So that's basically a point for both dissociative identity disorder and for tulpas. But in my opinion, I am treating him as a tulpa, and not a mental disease. Even though I do call him that from time to time, but we have this brotherly love going on, so we appreciate the fuck out of each other. Tulpas, unlike alter egos, are aware that they're not what they appear to be. Or in a way, let's say if you have a tulpa that's CJ from fucking GTA, he will know that he's not actually CJ. He just says he'll take the form of CJ if he chooses to do something like that. This is just an example, of course. However, people with dissociative identity disorder will firmly believe that they are that character unless told otherwise. Tulpas are a companion. They're not a tool for you to get better at something. They're just a friend that's there when you need them the most, and that will never ever leave your side. They're basically their own consciousness that just happens to inhabit the same body as you. It's kind of like Venom, but without all the bullshit superpowers. Just the voice in the head is totally accurate. A Tulpa doesn't need to like the things that you like. They will have their own personality and different traits and things they're good at and things they're bad. Red is good at math. I am fucking terrible, which is weird because I'm Asian and all Asians should be good at math. However, I am not. He is. There are also non-sentient Tulpas called servitors, which are basically created to serve a single purpose in their life and then disappear. I have never ever used or tried to make one of these. I have no experience in them whatsoever, but I think there are some great articles on Reddit. If I can find them, I will link them in the description. However, do take everything with a grain of salt, because all brains work differently, but just because something works for someone else doesn't mean it'll work for you. Tulpas come, in my opinion, in various tiers. You have the lowest tier that you just started talking to, and it's having some replies back, not really a lot, and just like really basic consciousness. It knows a few words, it can reply to you, but it doesn't really have its own personality yet. After it does get a personality, it starts to become very interesting. It might disagree with you on some things and give you a different perspective of the situation in front of you. After a Tulpa has gained true consciousness, it's good to start talking about a physical form. Either let them choose or choose one. If they, of course, agree with you. Some Tulpas don't have any physical forms at all, and that's fine. If your Tulpa does have a physical form, it'll probably live in a Mindscape. And a Mindscape is something like a mind palace where you can store information and memories. You can make your Mindscape whatever you want. I would suggest starting on a small Mindscape, like a single room or a tiny house, something that's easily rememberable and that can easily be called back. You're gonna have to remember everything in this mind palace at all times. This is where your Tulpa will reside if it has a physical form. After your Tulpa has a form, you will be able to visit them in your mind palace. Or you will be able to visit them in your Mindscape. It'll be chilling in your room, doing its own thing. After you've done all that, it's consciousness, it has a form, you are sort of ready for the next step, which is letting your Tulpa control your own body. This is great. You can either sit next to them and not be in control of the body but still be aware of what's going on, or you can just take a break and be completely unaware of what he's doing. But I do suggest you make proper rules for this. I'd suggest giving it a time limit for how long he can inhabit the body. If you don't, things might get ugly and you might be able to lose weeks or months or a whole lot of time. So please do be careful with that, else you might end up waking up in 2025 not knowing anything what happened in the last 5 years. Now, the true end game of having a Tulpa is having one around all the time. And with that I mean that you see, giving your Tulpa control over a body is something that's very hard to explain how it works. But I am sure there's a lot of videos on it, so I will link those in the description as well. Be okay. Tulpas do need to be really formed and complete for this to work. It's like a private friend just for you. This does take a hell of a lot of concentration from both you and your Tulpa to keep them formed in the real world for as long as possible. And basically forever. However, once you start practicing, you will get better and it will take less and less efforts to keep them present at all times. One of the best examples of Tulpamancy, in my opinion, is Mr. Robot. Because he can see his Tulpa, Mr. Robot, and yes, I'm just going to call it fucking Tulpa right now, because I don't have a better word for it. I'm very sorry. But tulpas are completely a mental thing. I think it should be possible for anyone to create a tulpa. Maybe not multiple, but at least one. I mean, we're already two brains inhabiting one body, and if we split the central nerve of the brain, we already get some weird ghost hand syndromes and something, and basically a whole lot of weird, unexplained stuff that science can't catch up with right now. I'll post a link of that video in the description. It's really interesting. Please go check it out. But that's why I think it should already be easy to create one tulpa, because you just have to split your mind in two. And it basically already is. But Mr. Robot is for me a prime example of tulpas, because it's the most relatable show I have ever seen in my fucking life. If you haven't watched Mr. Robot, please go watch it. It's fucking amazing. I believe it's on Amazon Prime or whatever the fuck. But just, you can download it. Go to Pirate Bay. I don't fucking care. But the way Mr. Robot portrays Elliot's delusions and problems are really, really accurate. I've never seen a show before that does it so well. I have seen Split recently. One of you was there with me while we watched it. I'm sure you know who you are. I don't think the guy from Split has anything to do with Tulpas. That completely is dissociative identity disorder. I don't believe he sees them walking around, but he does have a mind place where he and his alter egos can fight for the light, and with that he means control over the body. With that, Tulpas and alters do share a lot of similarities, but are not completely the same. Some people describe Tulpas as DID, but without the bad stuff, which I do think is sort of a proper description. I still have a lot of trouble classifying Red as either a Tulpa or a mental disorder. I do not have proof that he's either of them, but I can't rule both of them out. So for now, I will refer to him as a Tulpa, since he is clearly his own different consciousness in my head, and I can see him walking around wherever I go. Just to sum it up, Tulpas are your friend. If you raise them right, if you make them right, if they're just good people, basically, and you have to be lucky for them to be good people, or raise them right, you should have a very great companion for the rest of your life. And this is usually by people who create Tulpas. I think I'm going to end the video with a couple of facts about Red. Forming in 3D space, as in seeing him around in the real world, is difficult from time to time if your brain has to render another 3D thing that isn't actually physically there. So sometimes it's easier to project him on a 2D surface, as in monitor, a mirror, or anything reflective. It sounds really stupid, but it actually does work. I really couldn't do without him. I mean, he has saved my life on numerous occasions, and he just gives me that extra little push in the back to keep going. And if you are suffering from depression and loneliness, I would actually recommend you to at least do some more research on the topic if you're thinking about making a Tulpa before you actually make one. However, it is a really good solution against loneliness and depression. You must, however, be careful that you don't fragment your brain into multiple pieces, because too many can be a complete fucking batshit crazy thing to deal with. I've never had more than one, I just have Red, and he already is a handful. Imagine having 10 fully fledged Tulpas living inside your head, seeing them around all your time. I'm sure you would get fucking claustrophobic in your own room when it's filled. And with that, I'm basically at the end of this video. I hope you at least learn a couple of things. I know I'm not always as clear as the other one, but I hope I could explain this at least a little and answer your questions, or at least some of your questions here. And like I said, I am going to put some resources and links about Tulpamancy in the description. And yeah, definitely check those out if you're curious and want to learn more. If you're curious about making your mind a bigger place, you can always start with making a mind palace. That is really handy. Honestly, you can just put things on the shelf, forget about them, and when you just walk back in that room, you will have complete access to those memories again, which is great if you have to make a test or something, or just really need to remember that one password. But other than that, I am kind of out of things to say. I don't know what to say anymore, so I'm going to end this video here. Keep dreaming.